Ladies and gentlemen, K Kim here. Welcome to the daily update. Hope you guys had a good day trading today. Market is down. Nope, market is pretty much flat throughout the day today. We did see some fluctuations, but across the board, we're seeing the market pretty much flat there. Some indices are down a little bit, but so let's get into it here real quick. You can see that this was today right here. So we gapped very slightly. No, this actually we gapped down. Yeah, so this is where it closed yesterday, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so that's where it closed. We gapped down. I wasn't watching this morning. I'm kind of curious how much of a gap down that was. 0.5% gap down this morning, not a huge deal. And then you can see that thing got back up and then filled the gap. So that's kind of like, it didn't have enough juice to thrust above it because that gap down, that gap got filled, and instantly that gap filled level was acting as resistance all throughout the day. And we had 2 touches today on my short-term moving average. You see the squiggly line there. So that was that when we saw the gap down, you know, and I think a lot of bears are looking for a continuation to the downside. This is why we talked about on the last night's video that if we just slide down these short-term moving average, my mid-term moving average, they're going to act as support. We talked about this thing gapping down well below 308, 307, 306. Remember we talked about that yesterday. That's not enough gap down, you know, to kill that momentum. And so quickly you can see that that level did act as support. On the last hour, you can see that we did see weakness there. And then it got right to that support, my short-term moving average, and then we closed the day kind of near the high of the day there. So we're still grinding sideways. As far as the price is concerned, we have not seen a lot happening. Nothing has been developing. We've been pretty much, after we saw a big gap down, we've been pretty much grinding lower, and that downtrend resistance, we still dealing with that. Despite the fact that, and I guess I can call this as a micro term bearish, but I'm more neutral in the short term. Even though we are staying above that, you know, my short-term moving average. In normal circumstances, I will give benefit of the doubt to the buyers, but knowing that this downtrend resistance still acting as resistance, this that island top reversal gap has not been filled. So I'm actually giving it pretty much this week that the short-term sentiment is neutral. I'm kind of giving it mid-term sentiment still bullish. The price is slightly above that my mid-term moving average, because if we can kind of go back and just check what happens since the March lows here. So every time when the price gap back above the moving average there, so you can see right there, we stayed above it, we stayed above it, we stayed above it. We got lower here, but stayed above it, stayed above it, stayed above it, stayed above it, and now we are just right there again. You know, you can see right here on this day, you know, I can see the price, and yesterday we kind of compared it to May 6th price action. So you can see that midterm moving average did get retested on May 6th, but again, when the price is staying above my long-term moving average, that blue dotted moving average, this is the reason why I'm giving it benefit of the doubt goes to the buyers in the midterm because of that. Obviously, my long-term, we're still in a bullish sentiment there because we found some strong support back in May or June 15th. That was Monday, actually. And I remember a lot of people were freaking out on Sunday night because I guess, again, I don't check futures. I don't check futures. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my energy. But from what I hear, Sunday night futures are down like -3% or something like that. And what happened? How much gap down? It was like almost 2% gap down. We didn't quite see. I guess futures recovered before market open, but I remember people were telling me later that futures were down like 3% on Sunday night. And then Monday morning, we saw 2% gap down. Quite not enough, because you can see my long-term moving at, and it happened before. You can see that this was a gap down too. We saw drawn out bearish move, and then you can see there was a gap down here. That must have been at least about 2%, 1.7% gap down there too, and just right at that level there. And the market got up, and then we're back above that midterm moving average. So I still want to give benefit of the doubt to the buyers in the midterm, but in the short term, I'm neutral because we're dealing with that. But then at the same time, we're above my short-term moving average, so I'm neutral in the short term. Obviously, in longer term, I'm bullish. The benefit of the doubt goes to the buyers. So let's check out that oscillator, because that oscillator is been curling down the whole time as the market has been moving sideways. We're seeing the market, or the oscillator, pulling back, and we saw something similar before. You can see right here, price move sideways, and you also have to understand that while the price is moving sideways, it is staying above my midterm moving average there. You know what? Let's actually zoom out a little more and see if we can find any other times where we saw similar sentiment, right? Similar, price action happening. So we got that sideways, right? We got the sideways move right here, and it has to be. So you got the consolidation, right? Sideways move, but it has to be above the midterm moving average, which is that blue dotted moving average. So you can see right here, price moving sideways while the price is staying above that my midterm moving average there. Any other time? Here. So we got here. Any other time? No, so those are 3 occasions. So here, sideways, here, sideways, here, sideways. An interesting part about those 3 incidents is that all those 3 times it dealt with the gap up. Do you see it? Right here, I'll blow this up real quick. So price sideways, because there's some up and down, right? Price sideways, and all those 3 times we saw gap up first. We continued higher and then pull back and then sideways. We gapped up first. We saw up move and then a pull back and a sideways. We gapped up first, pushed it higher, and then we're pulling back. So very, very similar sentiment here. This is a reason why I'm saying benefit of the doubt goes to the sellers in the midterm because of this. So let's go back to the oscillator here. So what are those times here? So that was here. That sideways move, this sideways move, this sideways move, right? Let's look. Interesting, we did see a pullback there. Interesting here, we did see a pullback here. And we're seeing pullback here. So this is very interesting how you see these these cycles where we see a gap up, right, above the midterm moving average. And then you see price kind of trying to push higher and then falling back and then consolidating while the oscillator is curling down. Same thing here, May 20th, we see a gap up. Price trying to push higher, but ultimately it's been moving sideways while curling down. We see a gap up. Price trying to push higher, but pretty much moving sideways while the oscillator curling down. Only difference is, in April 24th, pretty much like late April, the gap was still open. And same thing on late May, gap was still open. So the gap being open gives it more bullish connotation, right? It favors its buyers more. And then in those two times, late April, late May, we weren't dealing with any kind of a short-term bearish downtrend resistance. We were not dealing with, that we've been talking about that bearish island top reversal gap that still remains open. So it's a little bit more bearish here today. It's a little bit more pressure to the downside. This is why I'm not giving it benefit of the doubt to the buyers in the short term because that's why I'm neutral because of that. Because of definitely late April and late May, you can even go back and check my video. April 24, 20, that week, April 20, 21, 22, 23. And then like a May 20, May 21, May 23. I was saying that benefit of the doubt goes to buyers short-term, mid-term, long-term because it was staying above all the moving averages. And there was no known, falling resistance or any kind of a, down gap that hasn't been filled that was giving it some pressure at the time. So today's just a little bit more, I would have to say a little bit more, it has a little bit more bearish connotation with the price action, but we have a very, very similar price. It's very, very similar sentiment going on right here, right? The script is very, very similar. So overall, because my long-term sentiment is bullish, my mid-term sentiment is bullish, overall, I still want to have bullish stance with the possibility of potentially seeing a down move to shake some longs out, right? And that's kind of what I'm thinking. But at the same time, my stance is bullish. My posture is bullish. Does that make sense? I think as long as we're below this falling resistance, and I think that gap is very important. That gap must be filled for the bulls, right? That gap, that purple gap right there. I think that gap needs to be filled for the selling pressures to die down. I think that's what made that gap and then that falling resistance. Those two things are making it more bearish in today's sentiment. So still kind of a digesting, consolidating, sideways, resting, pausing type of action. Very lethargic, lagging throughout this week. I think it's either going to break out to the upside or it could break down to the downside. I think that could happen. But I have to say there's a little bit of higher probability that could break out to the upside just because we're still in a midterm sentiment as bullish. But keep in mind, today's sentiment at the same time is a little bit more bearish than back in late May, April, May, or late April, and the late May there. But both those times, we did see a move to the upside. I'm kind of curious the performance of those two times, and I'll end the video with this. So from here to here, before pulling back, that's about 5.4% run. From here to there, I would have to say because there was such a short-term pullback, we saw a very quick pullback. So I'm gonna measure it all the way to the peak so that was about 10%. So here in April was 5%. So that was this pullback right here was a little bit steeper. It went all the way back to that, and then also you can see that we never took out this high. So I'm just measuring. So that performance in April was about 5%. But in May, it was 10%. But I think today, if we do break out, I think the performance, let's say we break out from here, the performance from here will be about, it will be about 3%. If we just go up and fill it, it's 3%. Sometimes bulls don't want to deal with this, don't want to deal with downtrend resistance, man. Don't want to deal with this gap shenanigan resistance. So what sometimes happen is sometimes they just gap over everything. And sometimes that kind of stuff happens, like right here. There was kind of maybe there's a bearish, there you go, there's a resistance here. And then there's a horizontal resistance. And you can see how this thing just gapped over. And later came back to retest prior resistance as new support. But you can see how the price just gapped it over the falling resistance and then the horizontal resistance. Later pulled back, but that's fine because that was another buying opportunity at the time because of prior resistance becoming new support. And you can see that that gap was not filled all the way. When the gap doesn't get filled all the way, you know that has a bullish connotation. And then we brought back up, came down, and then just, you know, just rallied. So there's that possibility where buyers could potentially see, if not, you know, maybe not tomorrow, but, you know, if not tomorrow, maybe sometime next week. That will be the best bet, because if the gap gets filled, we're going to come back down. We're going to come back down. So for buyers to not deal with that, just gapping it up. That will be what? Above 319. If we gap up above 319, there's good chance that market could jumpstart and continue higher and fill this gap at 322. Bears, keep that resistance going and gotta get below these moving averages, but at the same time we got 307 here. I threw some short-term Fibonacci levels there. I think that's gonna provide short-term support also. We got 308 and 306. So those are the levels to watch if we do see a slide going into tomorrow. So come back for you guys tomorrow night. We'll do the market update video tomorrow, right? We'll do a little bit more extensive analysis tomorrow. We'll go through the we'll check out several indices, maybe a couple stocks, and gold and Bitcoin, and that's what we do on the weekend video on Friday. So that's what we'll do tomorrow. So you guys enjoy your evening and good luck trading tomorrow.